And I think your question was, what are we doing to talk about Islamophobia? I would like to just say that we are a group of people who are, there are vast majorities in the Muslim world who want us dead. There are Muslims here who want us dead, which is why there has to be a security guard over there. I would like to first talk about my issues. I would like to first talk about my rights and my and the security threats that I live with, and then we can talk about how I should be helping Muslims put out, better PR for other people out there. What I do, and what I always talk about, is that Muslims deserve the same civil liberties as anyone else. Which is to say, I think that a Muslim extremist should be able to say that somebody that apostates should be killed because, they're actually they're actually pushing people into the hellfire. I think they should be able to say that. That's extremist speech, that's hateful speech. They should be able to say it. I find the hijab extremely offensive to me, but I think Muslim women should be able to wear it. I will defend their civil liberties, their right to be offensive to me. And that is the way that I counter Islamophobia, and that is the way that I counter bigotry. But I will not stop talking about the very real issues that dissenters and women and apostates face in Muslim countries and in Muslim communities.
Sorry, I just want to also bring up.
Sorry, Muhammad wants to say something, and so do I. Oh, it's okay. Shall I go first? Okay. Just a couple of things. I mean, when you say this is one interpretation, but yours is also one interpretation. And I think that's one of the problems, isn't it? Because everybody is interpreting how they want, which in a way is good, because that's why a lot of people pick and choose and explain religion to themselves in the way that it makes it compatible with their own beliefs. And which is why every religious person isn't out killing every person who's not abiding by their religion, because they do pick and choose and they do interpret text, and thank goodness for that. But the point is, though, that this idea of interpretation doesn't look at the reality of things, which is that those who do interpret and those who do punish and those who do impose laws and have states are interpreting it a certain way, not just ISIS, but the Iranian regime, the Saudi regime, the Pakistani government, the 13 countries that execute apostates, for example. And so this isn't just about personal interpretation, it's also linked to political power as well. The other thing is this idea that if you criticize Islam, or you say that, this is what Islam is anti-woman, as Christianity is, or Islam is homophobic, that you are saying the exact same thing as ISIS. And it's sort of like me telling you that you're remaining a Muslim is helping ISIS, because it's giving them the power base in which they can do what they want. And I think that's a false argument, because the reality is that ISIS has to be held responsible for what it does, in the same way that bigots and Islamophobes, as you call them, need to be held accountable for racism and bigotry. I think, I don't like the term Islamophobia. I don't agree with it, because I think it conflates the idea that criticizing a religion or criticizing the religious right is the same as attacking or discriminating against people, inciting hatred against people, but it's not. It's not. You can be, I can hate Islam, which I do, to be honest, and I can hate the Islamists and the Iranian regime, which I do, to be honest. But I love my parents who are Muslims. I have many Muslim friends, and I think that Muslims are just like myself. The reality is that most Muslims are not Islamists, and thank goodness for that. Just as most Christians are not Christian right, just like most Jews are not Jewish right, who want Palestinians dead, just like most Hindus are not killing Muslims because they eat beef in India, just like most Buddhists are not killing Muslims in Myanmar or Sri Lanka. I think there's a distinction between the religious right, between an idea, and between people. And I think this conflation aids the Islamists, because what it does is, in countries like Iran or Saudi Arabia, if we say the things that we say, we're immediately accused of blasphemy and apostasy, and are the jails are full of people who have had these accusations against them, facing long-term imprisonment and also the death penalty, or being killed by mob violence, like Mashal Khan in Pakistan just quite recently, or a 17-year-old Yemeni, shot dead in front of his home because he's an atheist. Here, that sort of blasphemy and apostasy laws are being imposed on us, not by law, but de facto, by these accusations of Islamophobia, where it tries to silence criticism and also to conflate it as hatred. Look, you can criticize atheism. I'm a communist. You can criticize and hate communism. I hate communist Russia, for example, or most of the communisms in the world. I think they're totalitarianism. But you can hate an idea. You're not hating me or inciting hatred against me. And I think that's the distinction. I think one of the questions you should ask yourself, and I say this in all sincerity and in friendship, is that when there are people like us being murdered in the streets in many countries across the world, where so many young people, just like yourself, don't have the right to think and live as they want, you should be focusing on them, not those of us who are trying to break free, who are trying to dissent, who are just fighting for basic human rights. And I think we're not the enemy. We're not the enemy, but unfortunately, so many people see us as the enemy. And that's part of the problem, and to compare us with those who want us dead, it's, victim blaming at its finest. It's like blaming the woman who is raped for the way she dressed. It's exactly the same thing. Because of what we say, we either deserve to die, we deserve to be punished, or we're the same as those who are trying to kill us. This is really, you should really think about these things when you say them. I find it incredible that people can still say that at a university in Boston.
So, anti-Muslim bigotry is a problem. Hating Islam is not a problem. The definition that you gave was Islam, religion, culture. Screw all of those. Religions have no rights, ideas have no rights, people have rights, civil liberties exist. You can have the most horrible idea in the world and you have the same rights as I do. It doesn't matter. Your actions are what get you punished in any way, shape, or form. Religious people have struggled with this a lot. Your ideas do not matter in the court of law regarding your civil liberties. As Sarah was saying, if you believe that apostates like me should be killed, you still have the same civil liberties as me. You can still say that and be okay. We have freedom of speech in America. Beyond that, I think it's insanely bigoted to reduce Muslims to their text. Most Muslims are against slavery. The Quran condones slavery. Muhammad was a slaver. Muhammad had sex slaves. Umar had sex slaves. Umar's slave murdered him. I would say 99.99% of Muslims are better than Islam. And reducing them is a horrible, horrible thing to do. And that is why we have all these problems. The left gets confused when Muslims try to conflate Islam and Muslims. They're very, very different things. Muslims are better than Islam, and they will continue to get better every day. The text is static, and it will stay that way.